Your drawings look messy. That is something that I hear a lot, and if that sounds familiar, then this video is for you. You see, the thing is, these are sketches, and they are supposed to be that way. In a world where we want everything to be perfect, what we see on social media are all the people's finest works, but we kind of forget that we also need a way to get there. We need our bad drawings, we need our messy sketches, so we can create our good ones. And that is what my sketchbooks are for. They are for practice, they are to learn, and they are to put my ideas down. So basically a sketch is that you try to capture a pose or you try to capture some anatomy by observing. Oftentimes you use a reference, but also often I don't use a reference because I want to practice with drawing from imagination. But I hold the pen a little bit further back, I draw very light, and as you can see I draw with multiple lines, and that way I can play around with the pose, with the position to see what works or not. And because I draw with pen, I cannot erase, so I just draw over the parts that are wrong. And if you draw with a pencil, I recommend to really limit the amount of erasing that you do, because every time when you stop to erase a part of your drawing, you will stop the creative flow that you're in. And you just need to tell yourself that these are not your final pieces, these are the stepping stone towards your final pieces. Another reason for sketching is to use the sketches as a warm-up. Before I go into the drawing that I want to work on that day, I usually make a couple of loose sketches just to get into that movement, just to get that feeling of the pen and paper. And I recommend everyone to do the same because, well, it's quite normal when a musician kind of warms up before they start to play. When you do sports, you do a warm-up before you start doing your sport. So why as an artist shouldn't we do a warm-up before we get into our drawing or in our painting? It's just to loosen up a bit and also to get into the mood of drawing. And with making sketches like this, I also play with poses. That way I can learn and practice. I can actually see what works and what doesn't work, because anatomy can be tricky. Oftentimes it's a bit easier to draw a creature from inside, but once you start to draw them in different poses and from different angles, it becomes more difficult. And in your sketchbook you can play around with those shapes and angles. And even though the sketches might come off really messy and not entirely correct, that's totally okay, because you learn something from it, you see where you're lacking, and because you see where you're lacking, you can search for information more specifically where you want to improve, so you can practice that specific parts. So if you find out that you struggle with drawing the wings, for example, from different angles, then you'll know that you can do a page filled with dragon wings and draw them in different positions, different angles, draw them fully expanded and draw them more close to the body. Without doing your loose sketches, you don't really encounter your mistakes that often, because you are stuck in one drawing and it takes very long to finish that drawing. But if you have like 1 hour to draw and you make a couple of loose sketches, you have encountered many more problems and you have a more clear image on the things that you want to work on. And what I'm doing with this page is that I'm drawing dragons inspired by animals. I'm using different poses, different angles, and I'm skipping the part where I go fully into detail, because the details, they don't really matter. I just want to see what works and what doesn't. And sometimes when I draw like this, sometimes they're just all bad, and sometimes most of them are bad, but one really stands out. And if I have drawing that stands out from the others, then that is the one I will continue with, and that is the one I will start working out. I will draw it again and go more into detail. I will find the parts that I struggled with, the parts that are a little bit off, and I will look at references from real animals to see how they move. I will look at skeletons, for example, but also at muscles, so I can get a more clear image to fix the part of the drawing that is not entirely correct. But without drawing a page like this, I wouldn't have found the dragon with the most potential that I need to work out later. And if you want to learn how to draw dragons yourself, I do have some tutorials up. I will link them in the description of this video, so you can draw along with me. And as you probably can tell, my sketchbooks are really important to me, because they are not just for practice, they are not just that to become a better artist. To me, they also help me with my mental health. I struggle with social anxiety. I'm also autistic. So during the day, I get like a lot of impulses, and sometimes that makes me really nervous. And when I sketch, that actually calms me down a lot. And I recently started to participate in a drawing club. It's like a meeting with people once a month. It's in a pub. And at first I was really scared to go there because I am in groups. Because I'm very nervous when I have to talk in groups to people. But having your sketchbook with you and just a pen, and you can just draw, and the other people are drawing and doing art as well, that's actually quite nice. So if you can find something like that, I highly recommend it. So yeah, to me a sketchbook is also a way to regulate my emotions and to focus on one thing when the world around me feels very chaotic. So when sketchbooks are very important to you, then I'm also curious about how many sketchbooks do you own? Because I always feel like I own too many sketchbooks, and that is because I love them so much. I love drawing in sketchbooks. And like I also mentioned, I'm autistic, so I like my sketchbooks very neatly ordered. So I have a sketchbook filled with dragons. I have a sketchbook that's dedicated to horses and horse-like creatures. I have a sketchbook that's for animals. I have a sketchbook that's for portrait. I have a sketchbook that's for poses. And I try to limit it there, but I also have a sketchbook for watercolor, a sketchbook for markers, and a sketchbook for markers and ink. And these are the most important ones. I also have a couple of sketchbooks where it just doesn't matter. And these are the sketchbooks that I usually take with me in my bag. They're a bit smaller, and I most of the times I bring them with me. And it doesn't matter what I draw in them. Sometimes it's a fully detailed drawing, and most of the times I just draw cubes or cylinders or ribbons because then it's just for practice. And even if your sketchbooks are meant to be aesthetic, if you want them to be aesthetic, if your sketchbooks are themes like this dragon sketchbook as well, please also allow yourself at least one sketchbook that's going to be the big mess. The sketchbook that's going to be like a pile of just everything. And if you're worried about it, you don't need to show it to anyone. So this is another page of my sketchbook filled with dragons. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments what sketchbooks mean to you and how many do you have. And I thank you for watching, and I'll see you with the next one. Bye!